Get ready for another microdose. And hey, if this information is jiving with you, then check out the full episode. The link is in the show notes. Enjoy the ride.
So that was an incredible experience for me, being in the jungle with chimpanzees and watching the males who were obviously significantly more physically aggressive than the females, and the females who were nurturing and far more nurturing than the males, and spent time with their kids mostly. That's a generalization. There's a lot of variance and overlap, and I just want to say, going forward, anytime I talk about sex differences, there is variation and overlap. I'm talking about population averages. There are some men who bawl their eyes out on a regular basis, and there are some women who are violent and totally stoic. So just keep that in mind, and please, nobody accuse me of mischaracterizing the capacity of males and females to show characteristics that are, maybe characteristics, sorry, of the opposite sex. So the point is that it was observing patterns of behavior in the wild that were not influenced at all by human culture. And that these behavioral sex differences paralleled, of course, in many ways, what we see in humans. So when I began at Harvard in what was biological anthropology and is now human evolutionary biology, I encountered what I have to characterize, and it's not only this group, but largely feminist scholars' explanations for sex differences. They were against, largely against, not totally closed off to, but largely against biological explanations and pro-cultural explanations that invoke something like the patriarchy. That was contrary to what I understood and what I have come to, even after doing my best, to entertain all kinds of explanations for human sex differences. I became convinced, and no one has yet caused me to doubt my central hypothesis, that testosterone specifically is the most important biological agent that explains our sex differences. It interacts with the environment, and that is how behavior is produced, is via a lifelong and very deep interaction between our genes and our environment. And the fact that in males have a Y chromosome generally means does mean they're going to produce sperm, on average, again, and not all males produce sperm, and testosterone. And it is testosterone that leads to the phenotypic, that is the behavior and the body, characteristics that differ from female characteristics in these very profound ways.
Well,
yeah. Go ahead, John.
So we spoke generally there, and we're just going to continue to speak generally. What are those major impacts of testosterone across I love the way you phrase that, the non-human animals, because we are in that animal kingdom ourselves. What are the major impacts of testosterone across the animal kingdom?
So I should start by saying that there's a lot of controversy now, which is frustrating and I think derailing social progress and our ability to discover how the world works. There's a lot of controversy about what male and female mean. And it's because science is becoming very politicized, but male and female in evolutionary biology and in biology in general have very clear meanings that have huge amount of explanatory power in understanding how the world works and animal behavior. So males are defined by the basically ability or body plan to produce small gametes. And in animals, this is sperm. And female is the ability or body plan, again, because I'm not producing eggs anymore, but I'm still female. So it's the body plan to produce large gametes or eggs. And the reason this is important is because in order to reproduce, sperm producers need to do something very different than egg producers in terms of how their body develops and how their behavior develops. And there, of course, has to be a coordination between body and behavior. So if you are in the body, a sperm producing body, there needs to be a way for the body to kind of know that it is producing sperm. Sperm are cheaper to produce than eggs. You're producing millions of sperm a day. And sperm producers, there's a long, interesting evolutionary history here, but sperm producers generally need to find the eggs or egg producers. And there is generally competition among the sperm producers to fertilize the egg producers because eggs are few and far between. They're expensive to produce. And the egg producers do not generally have to go out seeking the sperm producers. But so over evolutionary history, these sperm producers have evolved traits that maximize their capacity, depending on the species and in the environment, maximize their capacity to find and fertilize the egg producers. That coordination has to be so testosterone or a analogous form of testosterone exists across most sperm producers, and it in sort of more complex, behaviorally complex, especially social animals, will have profound effects not only on the reproductive system, and that's what it does in humans. It shapes the male reproductive system to be what I'm not going to go into all the parts, but the parts that males have as opposed to the parts that females have. But it also acts on the secondary sex characteristics to develop and retain those characteristics that emerge in puberty under the influence of testosterone that allow us to very quickly recognize a male as opposed to a female. And that would be height and broader shoulders, narrower hips, certain kind of gait, obviously more, a huge amount of enhanced upper body mass, etc. Beards, deeper voice. I could go on and on. That's
Adam's
all
apple.
testosterone. Adam's apple. That's all testosterone acting on the body. So evolution would not give you guys all that stuff if it did not also do something to your brain, which starts in utero, because you have to practice this stuff as kids, which you do by sometimes just beating the crap out of each other for fun. And that is called rough and tumble play. Most boys do that. Most girls do not just have their friend over and start tackling them. They're just not that into that. It doesn't, and that's across the planet. That's practice. And that's the result of testosterone acting in male bodies, but not really so much in female bodies. And then, of course, in puberty, there's also changes that, in addition to those physical changes, puberty is when testosterone transforms a boy into a sexually mature adult who is producing sperm. So in a lot of other animals which are, say, seasonal breeders, like take male birds, they're not into, or red deer, which I write about in the book. They're not into sex or females or high levels of aggression if they're not making sperm. But when the sperm is made is when the females are sexually receptive because they are fertile. That is when the males grow weapons on their heads, which are testosterone mediated, and start trying to kill each other. When there's no sperm, there are no fertile females. The males chill out, hang out as bachelors, relatively peacefully, low level aggression. But they don't have weapons that can poke an eye out or stab somebody who was their friend sort of to death because there's a fertile female. That happens when sperm is being made seasonally. Humans are different. You guys start making sperm at puberty and stay fairly horny and aggressive for the rest of your lives. And that is because there are lots of females fertile at all different times, and you don't know when it is. In addition, you guys benefit from investing in your offspring. And that is why, and different men invest to different degrees and have different kinds of reproductive strategies. But the fact that we form monogamous social bonds and semi-monogamous, actually like mating bonds, means that the need for these really high rates of aggression is reduced. And also it's not confined to a specific season. So we can't, as a species, like maintain these super high rates of aggression. Chimpanzees do have those very high rates of aggression because there's always females coming into estrus and they fight over those females, but they don't tend to kill each other unless they are trying to work together as a group to kill a male from a neighboring community, which is a whole different ball of wax. Anyway,
hey, thanks for joining us on this journey. Small doses lead to big changes. If you're vibing with this snippet, then take a listen to the full episode by clicking the link in the show notes. If you would like to plug in deeper to what we're doing, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com or text MTM to 33777. Until next time, peace.